Hello and welcome to the Petey Performance Podcast. Another episode of the podcast, and I literally just saw that this is episode 100 of the podcast. So congratulations to me, I guess, and thanks to all you guys that have been here from the start and you guys that have just recently joined as well. Delighted to have you on board, and I'm delighted that we're still going and our listenership is still going up and we're still providing value for everybody that is listening, obviously, and thought-provoking conversations. A solo podcast, obviously, today. I was a little bit stressed earlier today, actually. I have a lot going on in regards to all the teams running. We were unsuccessful at the weekend. Quite a funny weekend in that, well, not a funny weekend, but a necessary weekend. I try to learn from loss as much as I can. And it's the stage of the season for my teams that, look, if you're losing, it doesn't matter. You actually learn more from a loss than you do for a win. We're not at our priority stage of the season, so we're not focused on peaking yet. So if we're losing 1 or 2 points and we're still in the game and we're still surviving from a physical standpoint, and we're getting through pretty unscathed in terms of injuries, and then we can build our technical and our tactical approach and build our cohesiveness or cohesion and how clinical we are over time, then we're all good. So unfortunately, my team's lost at the weekend. That is in relation to teams I'm working with, as well as Leeds and Munster. So that was quite a weekend to take, but you just don't get married to your wins. You don't get married to your losses, I suppose. Stick to the process. You're never as good as people will say you are when you win, and you're never as bad as people will say you are when you lose. So that's my focus for this week, is to bring the positivity, to continue to steer the ship as best as we can, not take things too harsh necessarily and make wholesale changes, because it's not really necessary at this stage. If we stick to what we're doing and we're consistent with it and we let it come to us and we use a mindset of abundance rather than a mindset of scarcity, then it should work out in the end. And if it doesn't work out, then it's a necessary journey to go through and something necessary to learn from. And a lot of people will hear that and think, geez, that's a bit hippy dippy. And I suppose I am a bit hippy dippy at times, but I prefer to take everything as it comes. As my ladies team would say, they take each game as it comes. And I take every opportunity, every scenario as a learning opportunity and a necessary thing to go through. I do, in a way, think that things work out the way they're meant to work out, and you don't get further by necessarily pushing and pushing and pushing all the time. Sometimes you just need to do what you're doing, be consistent with it, and it will come to you in time. And if it's not meant for you, then that's a learning opportunity, as I've just went through. And it's something that is going to be necessary for your development. And everything I've gone through up to this point, I wouldn't change any of it as well to where I stand now. So, and the person I am now. So I wouldn't do the same for any of my teams, for any of my athletes. I truly believe that what is meant to happen will happen, but we might as well work as hard as we possibly can towards increasing the chances of and the likelihood of that happening as we can. So what I came on to talk about today, actually, it's a nice little segue from that, but it is something quite different, something I haven't really spoken about in the past. It's going to be a brief episode. As you can probably see if you're watching on YouTube, I have my Thomas Davis gear on, so I will be going out coaching after this. And I just said I'd come on and hit this solo episode 100 and go through something that isn't spoken about too regularly in coaching, but I think it's a necessary thing to go through. And I haven't really prepared much for this. I don't really know what I'm going to say, but I know what topic I'm going to speak about. And it's about how we are in the coaching industry with each other, how we treat each other, and how we sometimes can ruin our own credibility and be incredibly demeaning and incredibly narcissistic in a way in our approach to how we interact with other coaches and how we speak about other coaches. As many of you well know, I was away at the Sportsmith Speed conference a couple of weeks ago, and I took some great learnings from that seminar and from that experience. And I met so many unbelievable coaches and unbelievable people. It was really fantastic to sit down with everybody, and really refreshing to meet so many good people in person and meet some new coaches and ask some good questions and learn from different approaches and different sports and different practitioners and different styles. And it was all fantastic. And there was literally not one distasteful interaction that I had over the whole weekend. It was just an honor to be over there and meet so many coaches that I hadn't met before. And it got me thinking, and it got us talking as well, because it was clear when we were there that everybody that was there was in a specific niche. So probably wasn't a great picture of the overall industry, because we were all interested in our own self-development and improving our coaching and improving our systems and our practice. And we were obviously all interested in speed as well. So it probably did niche down to a very small percentage there, but of the people that were there, everybody was open. Nobody was arguing really too much. There were different approaches to different things. And that was okay, because we all know that we're different coaches with different approaches, and there's no one answer to anything. There is no right and wrong, in a sense, in my opinion anyway. There's just maybe more right and less right. So many roads lead to Rome, as they say, but some roads are shorter than others. So just because your road is a little bit longer doesn't mean I can completely discount it. But I may perceive that another road is shorter, and I may go that road if I believe it to be the shorter road. And sometimes it will be the shorter road, and sometimes it won't. But it was clear when we were there that there was a number of coaches that didn't attend, that potentially didn't attend because other coaches that they didn't really get on with were attending. And then there has been a lot going on in the strength and conditioning industry for eons, actually, in fact, in terms of coaches arguing with each other on Twitter and on Instagram and on social media and whatnot, and people not getting on. And look, it's fine to disagree. You will disagree with people. No, sorry, you will disagree with opinions, and that is totally fine. And that's something that I've learned as well, is you disagree with opinions, not with people. If I disagree with you, I'm disagreeing with your opinion, not with you as a person. And you can separate the opinion from the person. You don't need to agree with everything everybody says all the time. And you don't need to agree with everything that somebody says just to get on with them. And you need to separate their coaching practice and their approach from them. And generally, people are pretty nice. And generally, as well as that, most coaches, regardless of what they're doing, they believe that they are doing the right thing. There are a very small minority that may be wholeheartedly narcissistic, in that they're just chasing the quick buck. But in a way, you're better off just leaving them to themselves, because that's short-term gain for long-term pain anyway, because they're going to ruin the trust that they have with their clients, with their athletes, with other coaches, and people aren't going to want to work with them in the long term. So in the past, I've been quite outspoken about other coaches and my thoughts around the way people do things. But over time, I've chosen to disengage from the arguing online, on Twitter, on Instagram, on any of the social media channels, and it goes on. But I've just chosen to remove myself from it and hold my tongue, because something that I've realized from watching other coaches present and other coaches talk about other coaches is when somebody speaks ill of somebody else that's not present, it doesn't do anything for them other than ruin their credibility. You're better off to just, as everybody's mother says, if you can't say anything nice, then say nothing at all. And the people that are listening to you will respect you a lot more for doing so. Sure, you might get a decent laugh or a cheap joke at somebody else's expense, but it's not going to do anything for you in terms of your credibility. And holding on to that hatred might be a strong word, but holding on to that ill will for somebody else or that hatred is doing nothing for you other than holding you back, really. And it typically comes from a place of insecurity. And this kind of spurred me on because I was a guest on Gary McGowan's podcast, Gaz's Gaelic Guide. Shout out Gaz. And I told him afterwards, because he questioned me on why he couldn't access my content previously. And I told him I had him blocked a couple of years ago. I've unblocked everybody as of the end of last year, this year. But I had a number of different people and creators on Instagram blocked. And the reason that I had them blocked was because of an insecurity in myself. I saw how well they were doing, and my ego told me that, oh, I should be doing that well. And because they're doing that well, that's one of the reasons that I'm not doing as well, because I'm in it for the right reasons and I have good intentions and they don't. And I had him in a box that he was only interested in creating social media content and generating a following and not actually attempting to help people. And that was coming from an insecurity in myself that potentially I wasn't good enough. And every time I told him this, every time I saw that he had whatever 15,000, 20,000 followers and I had less than 1,000 and I was still being consistent and putting out content every day, it reminded me of my shortcomings, which was the reason that I chose to block a number of different accounts. But until I let go of that, I was never going to grow as a person and as a creator, because I was also not appreciating how good at creating content Gary and others like him are. And I was also not appreciating him as a person. And having spoken to him now, I know that he is fully invested in helping people and fully invested in improving his coaching and improving and achieving a better quality of service for everybody that he helps. And as I alluded to earlier, every coach has their athlete's best interest at heart, at least for the most part, the 99.9%. So he was doing what he appreciated to be right or what he thought was right. And just because I didn't agree with it didn't mean that I needed to block him so that I didn't see it. But potentially I did need to go through that, deal with those things in terms of how I treated myself, how I spoke about myself, how I compared myself to others, because now I don't at all, really. I just try to provide the best quality service that we can provide the most value that we can provide, and continue to improve the service, improve myself, and to help more people and grow. And by focusing on myself and what we're doing and not focusing on others, like, it's been so much more successful as a result, because you get that positive word of mouth from your clients. People see what you're doing and they're like, wow, he is, and they are doing some great things over there. And you don't hold on to or harbor any resentment, which is completely, it doesn't help you in any way. So I apologized to him, as I said, and I outlined to him that, look, that was something I needed to go through, something I needed to deal with. And it is something that I have dealt with. And I know I've spoken on the podcast previously about going to therapy. And it is, I know us millennials are always talking about therapy and whatnot, but it is somewhere where I at least catch myself and analyze why I'm thinking a certain way, why I'm talking to myself a certain way, or what would be potentially a better way to think about it, to treat myself, talk to myself, and a better way going forward. And I truly believe that I am way, way better at letting things go now and to separating actions and separating opinions and separating anything really from the person and putting myself in another person's shoes. And this has led me to thinking more about how it seems that we're not really able as coaches to perceive the other person's point of view. We're not able to put ourselves in their shoes and see what they're trying to do. And we're not able to think outside the box and use some type of divergent thinking and think in a different thought pattern or think in the way that another person is thinking. And as a result of our egos, we're saying, I am right and you are wrong. Whereas, as I've said, there is no right and wrong. There's only more right and less right. And just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean that you have to talk shit, basically, about them. And that's something that I definitely will be trying not to do going forward. And I feel like it's better in general to just be honest with people too. Like on Gary's podcast, I was a little bit, well, I told a half truth in that I do have my phone on do not disturb and I don't allow people to tag me that don't follow me. So that was in fact true. But then I did tell him afterwards that the reason he couldn't access my account on Instagram specifically was because I had him blocked. And that was a difficult thing to do, but I think it was a necessary thing to do because people can see through your half truths and people can see through your dishonesty. And it was a necessary short-term pain for me to go through to hurt my ego, tell him the truth, but it's now developed a relationship with Gary where we were incredibly open with each other after that. And we had a conversation afterwards, and I said to him that I'd be happy to help him out in his journey as he tries to increase his education, as other coaches help me out as well. And I think like there could be some sort of a friendship budding there for the future, which is awesome. And that would never have happened if I let my ego get the better of me. And if I continually talked down to myself and continually compared myself to others and was continually insecure. So it's obviously a process and it's not going to happen overnight. But I think that's something that is definitely necessary for coaches, is to become a little bit more self-aware about how we speak to ourselves as well as how we speak to our athletes, because we're looking for self-awareness from our athletes and we're looking for them to think about these things in our teams with our athletes and looking for them to strive to be better athletes and better people. But there's no point in just paying lip service to it. You've got to actually actively do it yourself. And I don't think you do that by being insecure that your athletes will leave you and go and work with another coach, or by continually undercutting another coach and trying to get their athletes off of them. Think about how many people are in the world, how many athletes are in the world, and how many coaches there are. And they say that the market is saturated. Like, there's plenty of, like, not everybody or a vast amount of people do not understand the principles of strength and conditioning and what potentially we perceive they should be doing to improve their performance and take their performance to the next level. And so many of them are frustrated and so many of them are not achieving what they want to achieve. All we have to do is convince them that we can help them. And I don't think we convince more people to invest in coaching by undercutting other coaches. You don't need to be continually fighting for resources and fighting to get all of these clients off of each other and fighting for all the clients and saying, oh, I'm better than him and I'm better than her. Or it doesn't work. We just probably need to appreciate that you are the right coach for the right athlete at the right time. And a different coach will be the right coach for that athlete at that time. And you need to be comfortable in knowing that you've done your best and you've done your best at the thing that you are best at. But if it's something that's outside your scope and outside of what you do, you are better off developing strong relationships with other coaches or affiliate relationships with other coaches where you can refer out athletes to them for what they do best. We need to, in a way, stop trying to be what we are not and be the best us, if that makes sense. Now, there's probably a lot of hippy-dippy stuff in this, but I hope it's resonating with some people. So, I think we can put forward our opinions, put forward what we think, and we can be honest with each other as coaches, as practitioners, and have conversations around why we disagree around things. And know that we're not disagreeing with you, we're disagreeing with your opinion. And we need to stop this feuding that goes on. And I know that the hate and the trolling gets you short-term likes, but it just creates problems down the line and it ruins relationships. And I'm not saying that we can't still have a bit of crack. Obviously, a bit of slagging is fair game, and I'm one for that. 100%. Like even in Leeds, I was getting told that my constant ribbing was probably a bit too much for some people. But I suppose I outlined that being from a rugby background, as well as working out with the lads and the ladies out in Tala, and the way my family is as well. Like, we just slag each other and roast each other 24/7. So I was probably just still in that mindset going in, and then I didn't realize that other people weren't from that background. They probably were more comfortable with the niceties and the hello, how are you doing, please and thank you, with people that they don't know or they haven't met, than just going in with the roastings and slagging straight away. But yeah, so like that's just what I wanted to come on to talk about today. And I hope that this podcast probably shows how much I've grown over the last 100 episodes. Only taken 100 episodes to be somewhat secure in myself, and not think that I'm the best coach in the world and that everybody's wrong who's not working with me, and that other coaches and practitioners are doing such bad things. Don't get me wrong, I do disagree with a lot that is being done, and there are a lot of people in the industry that I think could improve their coaching practice and improve what they're doing. But I'm okay with them doing what they're doing, because if you think of it from an abundance or a perspective of abundance or a mindset of abundance, the athletes that work with them that potentially won't be helped by them will in turn then go away from working with them, and then you have the opportunity to make real significant change and change that athlete's life, really, in that you could help them to get out of pain, get on the field, perform at their best, and make real significant change really easily. Because if you have their athlete's best interest at heart and you're actively looking to improve your service consistently, and you come in with a completely different approach that is appropriate for that athlete, you will have really significant changes happen pretty quickly. So just because somebody's working with somebody else at the moment doesn't mean you won't be working with them in the future. So, and just because somebody's working with you now doesn't mean they won't be working with somebody else in the future. So I think we gain nothing by speaking or talking shit about other athletes. I'm trying to be eloquent sometimes, but then sometimes it just comes out. We get absolutely nothing out of talking shit about each other. We get nothing out of the feuding and the jealousy and harboring resentment towards others for them doing well. We're better off just taking responsibility for our own service, our own business, our own coaching, and our own athletes' futures, and focusing and investing wholeheartedly in ourselves and in our athletes and in the people around us, rather than consistently comparing ourselves to others, wasting energy talking about others, looking at what others are doing, and not taking the good from others, because that's something that I had the conversation with David Gray down in Waterford about. Is you can learn something from absolutely everybody, and just because you don't agree with somebody's coaching system or what they're doing doesn't mean that you can't take something useful from their approach to social media, or how they connect with clients, or their rapport with their athletes, or their rapport with their coaches, or how they integrate strength and conditioning with the sport, how they develop strength, how they build a community. Like, we're all good at different things, and you yourself are not fantastic at everything. So you should be pulling different parts from everybody else and everybody, and going into every interaction with something to learn, meeting everybody at eye level, meeting them on a level, and having a mindset of abundance over a mindset of scarcity. So, a lot of rambling for today's episode, but I had to get it out. I hope there's something useful in there for somebody. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, please remember to like it, share it, and send it.